So we're diving deep into deep conversations here on Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. I'm your host, Sean Kneese. My co-host, Harrison Storms, isn't here tonight due to some technical difficulties on his end. But in this episode, I wanted to talk about how comedy and laughter is good for mental health and your overall well-being, or we could say your over well-being too. That'd be another way to say it. Made up a interesting word there. But I could even start by talking about how when I started this podcast, this one, because I used to do another one, that I was in a pretty, like, it kind of came out of like I was in a bad spot, like I was pretty depressed about a lot of things. I was down on myself, and like I just didn't, due to some like certain things that happened and stuff, like I didn't want to do the BS anymore, because like I associated with like certain like negative things that happened that I didn't want to think about anymore. And I was kind of like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start a new show where I'm more vulnerable, and I kind of, talk about my own journey a bit more too, and like things that have helped me, and like just my own strength and weaknesses, like what I've learned, like where I think I need to go, and kind of like add humor into it too, like talk about things that have been that I've need to work on, or like my own inner struggles in a humorous way, and kind of putting a humorous spin on it. And I did that with my first episode, and I felt really it felt very therapeutic to me. And also I was surprised how many people related to what I thought was like an embarrassing story, or like an embarrassing experience, or parts of myself that like maybe parts of myself I would try to hide before, or like, you don't want to admit like certain weaknesses or insecurities. But I think sometimes when you just kind of put it out there and you're like owning it and you're kind of making light of it, I think not in itself, because to me, I don't want to be like, when humor's too self-deprecating, I almost feel like the person's kind of still coming from a negative space. Like this is who I am. It's not going to change, but more in a like, okay, this is who I am. I know what I need to work on and where I need to go from here, but I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm able to laugh at myself. And that was a very therapeutic experience for me. And just in general, not taking myself too seriously, or like using humor has been like, even in my day job, like when people who come into the office are mad or frustrated, a lot of times humor gets them to kind of stop being mad, and then I kind of develop a rapport through that. It's also a way to connect and kind of break the ice or break down barriers, yeah. Humor too. And for improv comedy is another way I've explored comedy, and that's helped me be a better conversationalist. It's helped me be more spontaneous. It's helped me with my podcasting too, like having more like natural, free flowing conversations with people. And improv comedy is basically improvised comedic scenes that people do on stage, and they get a suggestion from the audience, and then people do a scene based off that. And it's usually like random who you're on the stage with. I mean, sometimes there's improv teams too, but there's also improv jams, which is where a lot of people start. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely helped me with getting out of my head, being more present too, and has helped me with my my mental health and like overall well-being, or over well-being as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think before I even say anything about how comedy is a healing tool, just taking whatever's inside this thick piece of meat that's attached to my neck and putting it out in verbal words into the world, it's always less scary when you say it out loud, or you share it with somebody, or so, which is why therapy makes so much money, I think, because a lot of times when you keep something in your head, you can't really verbalize it, or it seems big and scary, and then you say it or let it out in some way. And it always seems less intense once you let it out. But I think we're just innately self-preserving primates, so we are afraid to let our weaknesses out. So I think before you even say comedy, just letting it out is helpful.
Yeah. I guess vulnerability, would be the word for it, right? Yeah.
I think that's it.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought, like, there's been so many times that there's been, like, I thought something was the end of the world, and I just talk it out with a friend, and then we kind of view it in a silly way, and it's like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
But
yeah, I'd say to that, like, therapy is the best, with Desiree's point, because it's like, it's just an hour. Someone just has to listen to you. They're trapped, you know? And then they can't even, like, they're not supposed to say anything. You just talk the whole time. It's amazing. That's cathartic, regardless of what advice they give you, you know?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And I'll let you both introduce yourselves now. I have two guests joining me today. They're both involved in the comedy world in different ways. I figured I'd let you introduce yourselves and talk about your work. And...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun hard that.
Oh, no, it's fine. They're like, oh, there's another person here. They might have thought I was...
They're like, who is this person talking on the podcast? Oh, I guess I should just keep on rolling. My name is Desiree Justin, and I met Sean through the improv community. I was a professional actress and dancer for many, many years in New York, and kind of fell into comedy in 2019, comedy proper, and have never really looked back. And now I teach at the People's Improv Theater, and I host a plethora of jams, improv jams, as we were talking about. I've done sketch and some writing and a bunch of stuff. So it definitely, I'll get deeper into it. But yeah, it was definitely a big shift in my career and in my life when I entered the comedy world. And it came hard, fast, and furious.
All right. So, and Shiv, I guess, if you want to.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, no, I'm also met Sean through the improv scene in New York. I just moved to New York from college, and I wanted to do comedy in New York. So I also wanted to meet people. So I took an improv class. Then I started doing some jams, or like, you know, improv mics. I mean, I did a lot of stand-up up until then. A lot of stand-up comedy, starting in Boston. And then moving to New York, I wanted to do stand-up. But in that journey, I took some improv classes and started doing that as well. And then I met Sean at Triple Crown in New York.
2019, back when there used to be a lot of improv shows. Yeah.
Shout out to Steve Ling.
Oh, man, Steve Ling.
And then there was the weekly team I did, the folks about the town Sundays. And then I think sometimes we did shows, like you would do your stand-up, and then I did my improv team.
Right. It was funny because I started there doing stand-up, and then I eventually was doing improv, too. So
it'll suck you in. I'm telling you, it's the best cult I've ever been a part of.
Yeah. No, it was awesome, and so I'm a stand-up. Right? I still do stand-up. Right now I'm based, a lot of more shows in kind of Boston, around Boston, because we're living in Rhode Island, but
sorry, I have to pause. Where?
In Boston?
No, but where in Rhode Island do you live? I'm from the East Coast.
Oh, I'm from, I live in Newport right now.
Shut up. No. Okay, we'll come back. I grew up in Fall River, which is actually closer to Rhode Island than it is Boston.
Yeah.
I grew up in that area. Anyway, continue. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I've driven through Fall River a bunch.
Yeah.
I played laser tag there too. That's random.
Oh, yes.
So but I still visit New York. Like, I'll be there next weekend doing some stand up, and improv was fun. Like, I think what you were saying, Sean, to your point at the beginning, improv got me out of my head more. Stand up's very, like, more heady for me, in a way that I can just think my thoughts and see if they're funny. But I don't really have to get outside of myself. I mean, I interact with the audience, but it's really about me. But then when I started doing improv, it was more about, like, the scene partner too, which doesn't come as naturally to me, to just listen and to be like, to just go with the flow, because I'm in my head all the time.
Yeah.
And stand up, that's a good, like, that helps me, articulate unique thoughts that I might have.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I guess they're both good for your mental health and, like, your happiness, and they both help you in different ways. I guess the stand up more for, I guess, expressing you and expressing yourself, and the improv is more for relating to others.
Yeah.
And I know you joke, you definitely laugh at yourself a lot in your comedy. I've seen some
Yeah, I do. The self-deprecating thing that you mentioned, it's like, I think comedy can be healthy for mental health. I think it also can be unhealthy. I think it's both. Like it's
showbiz. It's always unhealthy.
It can be unhealthy, because the thing is, if you're funny, that doesn't mean you're like healthy. Because like like I could be great at stand-up and make an audience laugh like a lot one night, and it could be with comedians who are great, and then but that for me, like that doesn't, like, I've had times where my personal life was in shambles and I've done well on stage, and people, like, I feel like kind of like anxiety, like seeing me anxious, or like, because they can relate to that. And so I think it's healthy in a way that for me it got me out of being lonely, because similar to what you said, Sean, I found a community of people, because I feel like an awkward person. So like I felt like when I met people in improv and in stand up, that there are people who could I could be weird with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if your entire job about comedy is like observing the world and picking out the unusual, or the thing that's like, that's unique or different. I mean, then we're trained to like love the unique and different, or the thing that's like a little bit weird. And so I think the people gravitate towards that, and you kind of find like-minded who are just open-minded and just want to accept different, because we're just trained to be like, oh, that's different, I should use that, or use that in my art, or expose that, or it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. No, I can see that. Like, a lot of times it's observing things that, like, when people say things now, because I've been around comedy for a while, I pick up on like little words, or something someone, like you're saying, or something someone says, and it's a big deal to me. I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny, and then like I'll think about it for like 10 minutes. It's like nobody. It's a small thing.
It's funny because I ended up getting into improv literally because I just finished doing an off-Broadway play, and I worked from like the ground up with the writers, and they were like, well, what do you want the character's we built it around you, like, what do you want to say? And I was like, I have no living idea like what I want to say. And I was obsessed with watching stand-up because I thought it was like the hardest thing you could do. I was like, you know what? I was a professional ballerina. That's hard, but not as hard. Acting's hard. Singing's hard. It's not as hard as being alone on stage with like a funny thought and being like, laugh at this. And so my friends were like, do some comedy. And I was like, well, I can't do stand-up. That's not going to happen. So I was like, I'm an actor. I'll go do improv. But it was, I mean, it was like night and day. I didn't realize how bad I wasn't admitting how bad my life was, and finding my voice through comedy and through that community, like, made me get out of a very dark situation. So, in 2019,
it made you view it from a different perspective, or like,
well, I just
was more myself.
I mean, I'll be completely candid. I was in a relationship for 10 years. I was engaged for 10 years. And in hindsight, long story short, it was a very abusive relationship. And I think when you're in those kind of relationships, especially as artists who are very empathetic, it's very much excuses like, well, like, there's a dark side to everything, and everything's really bad, and everybody deserves like somebody that cares or loves or can like stick out this bad situation. It's like, and so being a very smart, capable, outgoing person, I wasn't somebody that you would normally see as like, oh, poor pathetic is getting like physically beaten. But I remember going to improv and being like, I'm obsessed with this. Whatever this is, I want to be there. And actually some of my improv teachers, they know who they are. But they had seen me in class, and then they had seen me around this person and said, look, I would never, ever like mean to tell you anything about your personal life, but I've known you for a while now, and you just seem completely different when you're here than when you're around this person. And I'm just wondering, like, are you okay? And it was like the first time I really was like, oh my God, I don't think I am.
Yeah.
And then the more
because it seemed normal to you, and then I guess somebody else.
Yeah.
It wasn't until somebody else. Did you kind of feel like something was wrong, or
I mean, obviously, but like I said, we all have like behind closed doors, like where you make a mistake or say something wrong, or you just, I don't know. I think that I knew that I was unhappy, but it was very much just like, I'm a good person for being the one that's going to like stick it out, and this person's going to get help, and they're going to be all right, and it's going to be like me. It's like savior mentality, and then you put your own stuff aside. So I just think I just shrunk. And it's funny because then when I finally left this person, probably because of improv, and I felt like I had a community of people that were like, and I didn't have a place to stay. I was like, I had people in the improv community like, you can stay on my couch. Like I left in the middle of the night with like nothing, like a couple bags. And over the time, I remember being like, if that had been a year ago and I didn't have that community of people and this thing that made me feel so much myself, that I was like, I'll figure it out. Like if I can get on stage and get the suggestion like cheese and do a 10-minute scene with some person I don't know and come off that alive, like I don't know, I guess I'll be able to figure out whatever the hell life throws at me. And I did. And I'm like, honestly, like when I say it changed my life, even people in my life were like, you're a different person now. And it's not that you're different. You're just more yourself than you've ever been. And so comedy and being able to have that like free space to be an artist without judgment, without like, you have to be in this perfect little box. Like, you don't have to be this perfect little thing. You can just be you, was the thing that got me out of it. Sorry. I mean, I just thought it was probably relevant to the conversation.
Oh, no, definitely. That's kind of like would you say that sometimes the best comedy comes from like your lowest point, or like your dark places, or like maybe people who are really good at comedy have like a bit of a darkness too? Like I was thinking Robin Williams, like he struggled with severe depression, and he was really fun. Just, yeah.
I'm gonna say this is something I think about all the time, and I want to hear Shiv's opinion on this because I ask a lot of people this. I find that most of the good, what I consider my best stuff, always comes out when I'm going through a process of turmoil. And I almost feel guilty sometimes when I'm super happy. I'm like, well, this sucks. Everything I'm like creating right now really is just shitty because I'm so happy. I'm just like, I have nothing, like my life's pretty awesome. So like, I can't write anything good. But I don't think that's the way it has to be. I think it just, because the process feels so good, to when you're feeling so negative, to create something and feel like, look at what I did. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just in your brain. It feels like only good stuff comes out when you're having a dark moment. I think you can make stuff when you're happy too, but I don't know. I could be completely off. What do you think, Shiv?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think like comedy always comes from a dark place for me because I'm brown.
What?
And I'm totally messing with it. Well, that's the thing. So it's funny. I was thinking about saying.
And for those of us that can't see me, I am not brown.
It's funny because when you say that, and even me getting on this podcast or this call, right? Like I haven't met you, Desiree. So it's like for me, it's like I break a lot of like I just joke, right? And so even you just asked a serious question, both of you, right? And you're like, and I just joked, like I said, yeah, it comes from dark place because I'm brown. You're like, all right, shit, and so like, I don't know, that's separate. But to answer the question, I'd say like, for me, I think getting into comedy came from a dark place for sure. I think it did and it didn't, because I saw Steve Carell in The Office, like doing his thing. And then I saw Russell Peters, who's like a great Indian stand-up comic, and I saw both of them, and I was inspired. And it came from a good place, in that I was like, I kind of want to see if I can, have a career in comedy, so that I don't have to work a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. Mm-hmm. I said 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 those are the only two times it can end. 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, 9 to 6:20.
For most of us non-Browns, that is the case. That is when it's 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. You're not wrong.
So it's for me, it was more like I had these boring internships. I'm like, I want to be a comedian because that seems a lot less boring. And so, in that way, it did come from a good place. And then, I went to Mike's, and I guess the dark places of it is like I had a lot of failed, interactions, like especially in dating. Like when I tried to date, as a young man, I was just like, I mean, still, but it's just like as a young man, it's just like I tried to date and like, I had really awkward interactions with people, like trying to be vulnerable. And like I remember, I don't know, like, and that's how it kind of started in college. Like there was this girl I was like, oh, like, she was on her headphones and she was walking. I thought she was really pretty. So like, and she was in one of my classes. So I was like, hey, like my name's Shiv, she was on her headphones. She's like, what the heck? Who's this kid talking to me? Right. And so she was like, she takes off her headphones. I'm like, Shiv. I mean, like my name's Shiv. She's like, Shuv. And I'm like, no, Shiv. She's like, Shuv. And I'm like, Shiv. She said Shuv 3 times. Oh, no. And then I'm like, oh, come on. And then like, so to Desiree's point, I think, yes, in a way it comes from a dark place because it's like, for me at least, it could be like from, failed past relationships but I'd say generally, or like awkward interactions with my family. And at the beginning when I started doing comedy, I wasn't talking about myself or what I was going through as much. But yeah, I think it definitely can come from a good place for sure. For me, it's like when I talk to you guys, when I like see you guys and like, we're laughing together, or if I'm in front of an audience, it comes from a good place for sure. Because naturally I just want to make the people in front of me smile. I think like when I get in my head about comedy or like think about, I don't know, being lonely or, down or like feeling isolated, comedy definitely comes from that place for me because it's a brutal art form. Like especially, and I know improv is too, it can be, but it's like in doing the jams and like doing open mics, like the first 3 years of comedy, I like bombed. Like but the only reason that I was able to like handle that was because I was already so lonely. So like I went to a mic and then I bombed and like, it felt horrible, but I was already in a like not a social, like I think I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I see what you're saying. Like it doesn't come from a good place, but if my life went smoothly and like I didn't experience any sort of trauma.
Oh no. Yeah.
I would not have been funny. Yeah. I mean,
no. No. I agree. I think good comedy comes from some kind of trauma, but I don't think you have to be in the trauma immediately to create it. Does that make sense? I do think you need to have to experience it, some kind of darkness
to really people relate to you too. If you haven't been through, if everything's just all like sunshines and rainbows, like it'd be hard for people to relate to your art or your because I feel like that helps people relate to you and helps you empathize with other people more too.
Well, I mean, I think if we go down to like be really nerdy about it and we're like, okay, if we're going to talk like medically, laughing raises endorphins and serotonin, right? So then really in its essence, laughter is supposed to be to make people feel better. It is supposed to be a cure for something.
And how can you appreciate that if you've never been in a low point? Like that's how you appreciate it more. Like, because a good laugh can,
So I think that at its essence, pointing out things that are tragic are the things that make us laugh. Therein making us happy. So I think that that's it. It is a cure for itself. Like,
yeah. I feel like it's therapeutic both for like the audience and for the performer, and then also like, I don't know. It's just obviously it feels good to like make other people laugh. Honestly, I was gonna make a point and I just forgot the point I was gonna make, so I'm like filling air right now.
Yeah, but I kind of, even though I haven't
so like I like had an idea to like talk off of what you guys are talking about, and it just totally went away.
That's
So I'm like,
don't worry, we're on a podcast, so obviously all three of us love to talk, so we got you. We'll cover.
We got you.
Yeah, but even though I haven't really done stand up, I mean, I did like a spoken word where there was like humorous stuff, and I kind of used some of the material I did in my solo episodes, and a lot of people like they brought up, oh, you said this earlier. That was useful. I was like, I guess I said, I guess I did say something useful then, didn't I? So I don't know, like people remember all this stuff I said Like you never know how it's going to resonate, but it's definitely like doing the new show. Like I've done some solo episodes, and I've been more like not I still like interviewing people about their experiences and their journey, but like talked about my own journey more and kind of made light of certain embarrassing situations or parts of myself, and like just talk about my experience with depression, anxiety, and stuff, and like things that have helped me with that. Like it's kind of helped me like it's kind of helped me accept the moment more and accept myself more, because like in the yin and yang, there's like I feel like one can't exist without the other. Like the light can't exist without the dark. Like they kind of need each other. Like there needs to be, and it just kind of made me more accepting of like maybe mistakes in the past or certain shortcomings I've had, and it's helped me. And accepting it has helped me improve in it more, because I don't think you can really improve something or you can better yourself until you accept, okay, this is who I am now. Maybe I want to be here, but like I can still be okay with myself now. I don't have to be perfect to be okay with myself. Like everybody has flaws and things they need to work on, and that's just it. Don't need to take it too seriously. So.
Yeah.
And I think as comics too, like what's beautiful about comedy is like being able to voice like those types of things, right? Like that. Okay, like you say, "Oh, I've been through depression," but then you make it funny. So like that's what we try to. That's what we can try to do, right? To like heal through humor and like being brutally honest. And another thing I really love about comedy is like having been in low places, like the empathy, and then also like the ability, like even in improv at an improv show or at a stand-up show, it's like. I don't know if this relates to you guys too, or if you feel this way, but I feel like, there might be another guy, girl, or anybody in the audience that is in just as low a place or what, is in as low a place as I was at one point. And I have an opportunity to make that person smile or make that person feel valued.
Yeah. And like, they're not alone. They're not the only one.
No, I mean, that's why I got into the industry at all, that was the whole point, was like it saved my life even before this is like the second time it saved my life, just art in general, because having my whole career as a dancer and an artist and in theater saved me from another kind of abusive situation at home. So it was twice through. So I started doing it because I was like, oh, if I can do one thing and somebody out there is like, man, yeah, like I feel inspired to be my own person and I'm not alone, or I have those feelings too. That was like the whole idea. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do for a living. That's the only choice I have. That's just my calling. That's what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how. Don't know how I'm going to pay rent, but I'm going to make that work. That's
And how would you say, because you do mainly like, you do sketch and improv, like how would you say sketch? Because like we talked about like stand up and improv, like how would you say sketch? Like, how that can be like an art form that's like that. What can you say about that as an art form, and as far as like happiness and?
Yeah, I think sketch lives. Okay, this is maybe a little blasphemous to say. Okay, all you comedy junkies, don't come at me. Okay, but I think it's kind of a weird love child between improv and stand up, because you have time to like create an idea, right? Write it out, but it's definitely not about hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. It's not just usually about that. It's definitely like creating more like leaning towards the theatrical side, or like the a plot, if you would, kind of thing, scenario, scene based, obviously. So it's scene based like improv, but it's you take the time to write it out and like really write out your jokes and your point of view, or like what beginning and end, what is like the setup, the jokes, the punchlines, like you can set it all up. So it's like kind of somewhere in between that. There's also a lot of character work. Not that you can't do that in stand-up. Some of my favorite comedians do a lot of character work. But I love the idea that you can either take yourself and like blow it up, a version of yourself, a weird quirk you have, or somebody else. Like it's like you can just make it absurd in a sketch. So it's taking one idea and being able to like make it absolutely absurd in a scene, which I like.
like kind of so it could be like taking something serious and looking at it in a more absurd way, and then
yeah. As far as character work, like I teach a movement for improvisers and comedians class, and we do a lot. One whole section is about characters and like how do you create characters for like sketch or these kind of things. And I always say start with either yourself or somebody you know, somebody very close to you. We're not going to disclose their name. Like just think about them. Think about that one thing that makes you laugh. Like if it's your mom, you could call your sister right now and do the thing that your mom does, like with her voice or with the pauses or like what she's always complaining about, and they would laugh because they'd be like, that's just so true. It's so mom. Take that, layer it on, maybe change the gender, change the age, but like keep that, whatever that is, and then like blow it up, turn it up to a 10, turn it down to a 1. And like in there's a character, right? So if you take your mom's weird high-pitched voice and you put it on like an old 40-year-old man who like trains subway rats, it becomes a thing, right? Like it's right. And that's like a character you can play with, but it comes from real life. So it's still this idea that like we're taking things in life that drive us crazy or makes us, and we can just kind of explore it in a funny way.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it, one of the improv classes I took, like I used my uncle as a character, and a lot of people were laughing at that. But I feel like that class, maybe I should look at that. That's a class that's a
I teach it at the Pit.
Yeah, because I feel like it'll help me because I'm interested in like voice acting a bit too. I feel like that helped me with like making.
Yeah. It's a physicality class, but I mean, you can definitely get ideas for doing voice stuff as well through it. But yeah, I think that's definitely. I don't know where I was going. See, now, Shiv, I caught the itis. Now I don't know what I was talking about.
I think also being a character, like, and help people that maybe are shy or when you go on stage as a character, you suddenly feel more confident. And I feel like sometimes that can kind of help you to be like, okay, maybe I can just be a character in my daily life, a more confident version of me, and then just view as I'm playing a character, you know.
Okay. Side note, that what you just said is super important because I had a thing like that happen to me when I was kind of going through this whole, before I got to the Pit, but like I was still artistically doing this play and doing like some comedic things. But I remember deciding like, and if you look at my handle's Mama Des, because I went through this thing where I was like, I'm just going to start showing up places like as an artist and feeling worthy. Like, and just acting like I got all my shit together and like I'm this sassy talking person like that I used to do sometimes, but I'm like, that's not who I am. But I was like, no, I'm just gonna like, it is who I am. Like I wish I was that kind of person. And then like cut to like a year later and I was like, oh no, it's exactly who I am. It's just the thing I didn't want to do in front of people because I just thought, oh, like it's a lot. She's got a loud mouth. She's like, she swears a lot.
Yeah, that voice like in your head is like second guessing and like.
And it was me. So Mama Des kind of like went away. And I remember like I kind of stopped calling myself because I used to call myself Mama Des. Like I used to call myself. I'd be like, you can just call me Mama Des. Everybody does. And it's still my handle, but like I don't like everything is Desiree now because it's just who I am. But it was a process and I liked having that thing to put on. And then I just realized, oh no, it's just me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because like I feel like if I went out there as like a character like on stage as a character, like I have less of a filter because it's like I'm not worried as much what people are thinking of a fictional character I'm playing. So it's like there's not as much of like the self-consciousness or the insecurity because it's not really you. You're just playing somebody that's like like if I went out and just like was playing like I don't know, like a mobster guy, he talks like this, like I wouldn't really care like what people say thinking about what I'm saying as much. I just kind of like without a
But then can you be more honest in that? Yes, probably, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what we're trying to get at as artists too. So comedy is a way for us to be super truthful and super real in a way to us that feels a little bit safer because it's right. But I think it's important. And I remember what I was gonna say. I think the beauty of those kind of things, like using stuff from your own life, whether it be to write jokes or things, and finding that people are interested. It's always the thing you're like, it's just my life. And people are like, that's so funny or so cool. Like, really that happened to you? Or really that's your life? You're like, yeah, that's like my normal life. You realize you are enough. Like, and I know it's like a mantra with improv, but it's true. It's like your point of view is enough to be interesting and funny. Your life experiences are enough to be interesting and funny. Your point of view, who you are, is enough because it is unique. And if you can kind of really take the uniqueness and find a fun, creative way to put it out there, you're always going to get a response from people.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised. Like, the stuff that's gotten the best feedback from this new show is usually the stuff that was just like talking about my own experience or like making light of like an embarrassing experience and like how I grew through it. And like when I did that newsletter talking about like this whole thing where I developed a connection with deer because like I was depressed and then like I saw a deer look at me and like wag her tail and all that, and like how like a lot of people were like, oh, I couldn't stop reading. It was very interesting. And I remember, and then I also kind of used it in the spoken word thing. I made like a comedy thing of it. I'm like, okay, are they really the best spiritual guardians if they're always jumping in front of the road? Like, should I really be following them? And that kind of thing. But I know that like, so it's definitely helpful for that. But I was also thinking like, could there be the reverse? Could there be like this, like, I guess the sad clown who kind of, could people use maybe humor, always making jokes of things, a mask to cover up like something that's going on with them too?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ding.
I mean, I do it all the time. I'm probably doing it with you guys right now. I mean, like it's just constant. You know, it's like I mean, a little bit less, but it's always a defense mechanism, right? The only like you can always laugh, right? Like I giggle a lot. You know, when I talk about things that are uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like if you guys ask me about like how my parents want me to marry an Indian woman, right? I'd probably start giggling, you know, because I don't know what to do about it, you know, in my life, right? Or like, I don't know, like ask me about anything I'm insecure about, right? I'll start laughing and making jokes about it repeatedly, because I'm deflecting, you know,
right?
So I do, for me, I don't know, this doesn't have to do with everything you guys are saying, but it's like, I do feel like comedy, you know, it can be like just deflecting a lot, you know, and it's important. I think I've realized as I've gotten a little bit older, and I'm, you know, wiser now. I'm 27, you know, and I've, you know, seen life, right? I'm not that old. I probably don't know anything, but I, you know, as I get older now, I'm like, it's important to like be honest about my feelings too, and not like crack a joke every time, you know, I'm talking to a friend or someone that I want to date, or like when I'm being vulnerable. It's it's probably important I need to learn that. I need to learn to start being like more serious sometimes when it's a situation that warrants more seriousness.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I don't know. Snake eating its own tail. We continue to create our own trauma that we can then in turn use to try to make other people feel better who are also trying to cover their trauma.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it's so impressive to what you guys are saying. Like, and I do less improv now, but even Desiree, with you teaching it, and it's funny, I find it's so much harder to do improv and acting. I've always found it really difficult for me because it's really hard for me to get outside my own head. So if I'm in your class, or like I remember if I was in the UCB classes, be like, Shiv, like, you know, just give yourself to the character. And I'm like, I can't stop being myself, you know?
I know.
So like, I have so much respect for like what you do and teaching it to people, because it's very challenging for me. And you know, I you know, just to like fully give yourself up to like this character, this like outside concept, and just be like a vessel for it.
Yeah. I think I agree with Sean. I find it safer. I find it safer to be in that world of like, I'm just going to disappear into this character than it is for me to sit there and from beginning to end go, okay, idea, execution, trial and error. Idea, execution, trial and error is scarier. And especially when it's just you up there. It's just you. Yeah. You cannot blame your scene. Well, not that I wouldn't improv, but coming from the acting world. That's right. Sorry, I just like got like fired myself from the improv world.
But that's why I noticed. I think
improv, you can't blame your scene partner. But what I'm saying, not yet. No, but in acting, you could be like, oh my gosh, I'm working with somebody who's like, murr, or like the script was terrible. like, right? Or like, you know, the editing was horrible, and whatever you want to say. The director told me to do this accent and it was really horrific. Whatever you want to say, you can always, there's always, you have leeway when you're on stage with a microphone, just sharing your comedic ideas with people that genuinely come from your point of view and are about you. You're like, hey, do you like me? Me, just me,
right.
with
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
else. Everything, the jokes are mine. My face is mine. My voice is mine. My timing is mine. The whole structure of this set is mine. Do you like it? That is terrifying.
Yeah. It is. But Yana, it's, well, what you said too, like, is something I haven't thought about as much, because, you know, it is like escapism too, in a way, right? But you say, like, you know, being a character, it's like, I don't have to be myself. I can just be, you know, someone else, or be, and that's interesting to me. Like, I guess maybe I knew it subconsciously, but I haven't thought about it, that people who act or do more improv, they're, you know, they can just escape by being someone else.
Yeah, but I also notice, like, when people are newer to improv, like, that's usually like the characters are usually more wacky that they play. But I think as you get to doing more, it's more just like, okay, how would I respond in this moment? And like, usually, then that usually gets the more laughs. Like, you're not even thinking it's funny. I'm just kind of responding, and it's like, oh, people are laughing. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think that was that funny. It was just like what I would say in that situation. Like,
right. Yeah. And that's the thing too, in improv, like, I realized it started going better for me when I, like, started to just, like, forget that the audience was there.
Well, right. Like, you know? To what you're saying, you should always do that. You should always just, how would I respond? But my comeback to you is, when you really create a real character, you are responding exactly how that character would respond, which in turn should come somewhere from some part of you that is like that character, right? Like, whatever character you base should be somewhat, there's got to be a part of you that resonates in that character.
I guess even a villain, I guess, could be like, maybe your shadow, or like your repressed side of yourself, or like,
well, you should, that's like acting 101, is like, if you're gonna play like the bad guy or a villain,
the bad guy's never the bad guy to themselves.
You don't believe you're a bad guy. You have justification for everything you do. One of my favorite things that any improv teacher ever told me, he had heard from, do you know, Jane Lynch from 40-Year-Old Virgin? You said you like Steve Carell. Have you ever seen 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah, I have. I watched it all.
So Jane Lynch is on Glee, tall. She's got the short hair. She was in Best in Show.
What role did she play in the movie?
She was like the like manager at the store that was like in love with him. Like, she's got the really short blonde hair.
Yeah. At the bookstore.
She's on Marvelous Miss Maisel now. She was in all the Christopher Guest movies. She's hilarious.
I think I remember. Yeah.
They asked her in that movie. They were like, how she would like sing them the little songs and stuff. They're like, wait, how do you even come up with that stuff? And she's like, I just make a little box for myself for the character, and I improvise my way out of it. So whatever their point of view is on life, like, I just respond how they would respond on like what their mantra of life is, right? Like, I believe there's good in everybody. Then you can just respond. Doesn't matter if you're a mechanic or a single mother or, you know, a dog. You just believe in the good of everybody. And so every response you have is a natural response of my insides, that part of me that wants to believe there's good in everybody. I can be the dog that's like, yes, dog catcher, like, whatever it is, like, yes, I love you, right? Because I've had that, like, duh. Like, I've had relationships where I'm like, yes, keep me in this cage on the house. But, like, I wasn't in a cage for I think I lived. No, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it comes from something that we all really examine, and I just put it in a box, and then that's how you create a character, in my mind.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, there's a way to simplify it and not overthink it like crazy. Yeah, I remember I did an acting course in college. It was probably the hardest experience of my life, and I did an acting course, and the acting teacher knew that I couldn't get outside of my head for a scene, and I was afraid of it going into acting class. I knew he was going to pick on me because I'm really bad at just, like, you know, I can be really bad at just, like, being a character, right?
Yeah.
And maybe if I had you as a coach, Desiree, I would have done better. I don't know. But I just, you know, if I... No, I still like my acting coach. But he... Yeah, so I went into the scene and I tried to do it, and then he's like, Shiv, like, no. And then he's like... And then I had to, like, walk back And like I was supposed to be like in a relationship with like this girl and stuff, and like then like come in and just like have that energy and like be the character, and then he like shut off the lights on me, and then I opened the door. He was playing so many different tricks to try and get me out of my head.
Well, I think that this is like back to our point. If we circle back to like what we're saying about like art and mental health and like why do we do it? We do art in general to like observe life, right? And to observe things and reflect it back to the people and be like, hey, I've gone out, I've reported, observed, I've thought my point of view on it, and here it is. But in that, when we're observing the world, we also are observing ourselves like really deeply. Really deeply, we're like, oh crap, if I'm observing all this, everything else around, I also am looking at myself, the real me.
Which is kind of what I'm doing with the show, is like diving deep into others, diving deep into the world, and diving deep into myself. So.
Into yourself. And when you start diving deep into yourself, it's a scary place. It's a vulnerable place. It's an awesome place. And I think it's the key to finding mental health is not being afraid to know who you are, good, bad, or otherwise, and knowing that that's wherever you are today, it's okay. And there are other people out there going through the same thing as you. And hopefully a bunch of other people that like, you know, boob and fart jokes like me. So it's like, I hope there's some other people.
Yeah.
And I think it's also that you're giving to others too, because I feel like giving, there was actually like one of a meditation teacher that I went to, like this meditation group. He said, if you want to be depressed, just like be in your head and focus on yourself. If you want to get away from depression, like focus on others and like helping them. And yeah, I mean, that's been a rewarding thing for me. Like the job I work now is sort of related to healthcare, so sometimes I do get to help people, but also like if you're making people laugh, or if you're sharing stuff about yourself that people can relate to and it helps them, then you're giving something. Or like even just like making people laugh, like you're giving a happy moment to them. I make people laugh like all the time at work, like patients and stuff, and that's like a rewarding thing too. But, I think that definitely helps with mental health too, just giving to others. So.
Yeah, and I'd say like too, I don't know what, I just thought of this too, but with what you guys are saying is like comedy makes me feel alive in a way. Like I like if I didn't like in what we're saying with expressing our thoughts and like what's going on in here. Did you guys hear that? It just said it's 8:00. My laptop. Anyways.
Oh yeah, she said you need to go by 8:00.
It's okay. Don't worry. We'll wrap it up.
Comedy. You know, it just makes you feel alive, and it's just you know, I can like if I just worked my day job like Monday through Friday and didn't do this like podcasting or stand up or something, I feel probably just dead inside.
You would die. You would die.
Spirit. I wouldn't have a spirit. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I just because for me that's accepting just like giving up, you know, hope of any sort of thing that's like artsy or a dream or, you know, and some people, you know, they can do it. But for me, and I feel like with other artists, I can't speak for them, but I feel like we all kind of feel like we need, like this outlet is healthy for us because if we didn't do it, life just isn't as meaningful, you know?
No, I know, because it's about communicating with others. Really, at the end of the day, knowing yourself is the first half and being okay with it. And secondly is like having interactions and positive interactions with other people. And if you can do that, you got my vote. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. But yeah, I would love to stay and chat. I got to start wrapping up. I'm hosting a jam at the Pit tonight, so I have to go do more of the thing. I'm very lucky. I get to
have fun.
But if you want to plug, do you want to plug like anything like?
Oh God, sure. I guess follow me at MamaDes1 on the Instagram because I have multiple projects going on. So you can usually find my workshops there at thepit-nyc.com too. I teach if you're into improv, but I also teach other things and have jams and have shows. I'm on another long form improv podcast. It's not competing with this one. It's not talking about mental health. We just do actual scenes, like long form scenes. Called Sounds Funny Radio. So if you're into that, check that out. And that's about it. Thank you so much for having me, Sean. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
And Shiv, thank you so much.
And you know what? You kind of in a way you were a guest, but you filled in for my co-host too, because I feel like you you kind of do what he does. Like I'll ask a question. You kind of were doing what he does. Like I'll ask a question and then
I talk too
and
much.
then he'll kind of interject with, yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. I don't mind. It's see, self-reflection. I'm okay with my shortcomings.
Oh no, it was a good. I think it helped it flow better. So because that's usually what Harrison does, and he wasn't here, so you kind of did it instead.
Aww.
So yeah.
All right, I love you both. Nice to chat. We'll see you around, I'm sure.
Definitely. Thank you, Desiree. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yep. Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
And Shiv, I guess you want to plug anything?
Yeah. So I'll first of all, great to see you, Sean. It's been
oh yeah, good to see you too, man.
It's been a while, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen because you've been in Rhode Island. I used to see you more when you were in like the city.
Yeah. I might move back. We'll see in the next year or so. But my job's still based there. So yeah, in terms of plugging things, at Shiv the Comedian on Insta and TikTok, and I have stand-up shows coming up. I'm going to be hosting at the Tiny Cupboard this upcoming Saturday. I think that's June 10th, I want to say, at 10 p.m. And then I've shown Boston week after that. But just follow me on the gram. You're not going to remember, just follow me on the gram and you can see stuff there. I'm headlining in Rhode Island July 14th, doing 30 minutes. So pumped for that. So, yeah, man, just want to plug those things. So,
cool. And for future episodes of Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. iTunes not yet because like the cover art thing's annoying, but I don't know if iTunes is as popular as it used to. I feel like more people Spotify and like Amazon.
Yeah, I haven't been on the Tunes in a while.
Yeah,
I've been on the iTunes. I don't know if people call it the Tunes, but I haven't.
Yeah, I never. But it works. Yeah, you can check me out on the spot.
I think I've been listening to my music through I use this app called Musi mainly. But
they're not paying you right now.
No, I don't have to pay for it. It's just through.
Oh no, I was saying, but they're not paying you to plug them right now. Again.
No. That's just free. And Under Armour here too. Like we got a lot of brands. They're lucky. They're very lucky. Their sales are going to go through the roof. So for these plugs. So yeah, man. But yeah, appreciate you having me on again. And I know you stopped recording, but I'm down chat after a little bit.
Oh yeah, and I'll just wrap it up with social media. Let's talk about the deep stuff. Instagram. Let's talk about the deep stuff. And you can also follow my personal account where I post like the podcast and also other stuff I'm doing. SKNEESC1989, or just look up Sean SEAN Kneese KNEESE, and you'll find me too. And that's about it for this one. We'll catch you on the next one.